In the beginning, there is often a quiet moment that no one notices, a small gesture, a gentle choice, something offered without asking for anything in return. Kindness rarely announces itself. It arrives softly, almost unsure if it is welcome, and yet it carries a quiet hope within it. Sometimes kindness begins simply as a feeling, a warmth in the chest, a sense of care that does not need words. It moves slowly, like a careful step taken in the dark. You offer patience when impatience would be easier. You offer understanding when silence would be safer. And in doing so, you feel something open inside you, not loudly, just enough to notice. But even in these early moments, there is a subtle tension, a question that lingers beneath the surface. Will this be understood? Will it be received as it was given? Or will it disappear unnoticed, like a whisper carried away by the wind? They may not see it at all, or they may see it differently than you hoped. Sometimes kindness is mistaken for something else. Sometimes it is taken as weakness. Sometimes it is treated as something endless, something that can be drawn from without care. And yet, in the beginning, none of that is known. There is only the quiet act itself. There is a certain innocence in this beginning, a belief perhaps unspoken that goodness will meet goodness, that a calm heart will be met with calm in return. It is not foolishness, it is trust, a gentle trust in the unseen balance of things. You may notice how the body feels in these moments, the way the breath softens, the way the shoulders relax. There is peace in acting from the heart, even when the world remains uncertain, even when the outcome is unclear. Kindness has a way of settling something deep within, as if reminding you of who you are when no one is watching. And yet, there is also a quiet vulnerability here. To be kind is to be open, to allow yourself to be seen even slightly. That openness can feel tender, it can feel exposed. Have you ever felt that small hesitation just after you give, wondering if you gave too much? Wondering if you should have held something back? These thoughts often come later. In the beginning, there is only the offering, pure, uncomplicated, like placing a small light on the ground, not knowing who might pass by, not knowing whether it will be protected or ignored. This is where the story truly begins, not with conflict, not with pain, but with a quiet choice made in good faith, a choice to act gently in a world that does not always respond gently, a choice to be kind without guarantees. There is strength hidden here, though it may not look like strength yet. It is the strength of intention, the strength of staying true to an inner sense of rightness, even before anything goes wrong, even before silence becomes heavy. In these early moments, the heart is still open, still hopeful, still calm. It does not yet know the lessons that will come. It does not yet know the weight of restraint or the discipline of silence. It only knows that being kind feels right, even if the path ahead is unclear. And perhaps that is enough for now. To begin quietly, to begin gently, to begin with a heart that chooses care without needing to be praised for it, to sit with that feeling just for a moment longer before the world responds in its own way. After the quiet beginning, something subtle begins to change, not outside, but within. The silence that once felt peaceful starts to feel heavier. It lingers longer than expected. It follows you, even when nothing is being said. You notice it in small moments, a pause that stretches, a response that never comes, a look that feels distant. At first, you tell yourself it is nothing. Silence can mean many things, you remind yourself. And yet, the feeling remains. There is a strange discomfort in this kind of silence. It is not loud enough to disturb the world, but it is loud enough to disturb the heart. It presses gently, but persistently. It asks questions without words. Did I say too little? Did I give too much? Was I misunderstood or simply unseen? You begin to listen more closely, not to others, but to your own thoughts. They move quietly at first, then begin to circle. The mind tries to make sense of what the heart feels. It searches for certainty where none is offered. Silence has a way of doing that. It creates space, and in that space, Emotions rise. Doubt, confusion, a faint ache that is difficult to name. You may feel it settle in the chest or rest behind the eyes. It does not demand attention, but it does not leave either. You observe yourself becoming more careful. Words are measured. Reactions are softened before they form, not because you are afraid, but because you are unsure. Unsure of how much of yourself to show, unsure of how much quiet you are meant to carry. There is a temptation here, a gentle pull toward filling the silence, explaining, clarifying, offering more, hoping it will restore the ease that once existed. Have you ever felt that urge? To speak, not because you have something new to say, but because silence feels like distance. Yet something holds you back, a quiet instinct, a sense that not all silences are meant to be broken. Some are meant to be felt, understood, lived with, even when they are uncomfortable. This is where emotional discipline begins, though it does not announce itself. It arrives quietly, like a test you did not ask for. Can you stay present without reacting? Can you sit with uncertainty without rushing to ease it? The heart does not always like this. It prefers clarity, warmth, response. And when those are missing, it can feel unsettled. You may notice a restlessness beneath the calm, a desire for reassurance, a wish for things to return to how they were. But silence, when allowed, teaches something important. It reveals what is truly within you without distraction. It shows where your peace is steady and where it depends on response. It shows how much of your calm comes from inside and how much waits for permission from others. In this quiet discomfort, you begin to see more clearly, not just what is happening around you, but what is happening within you. The way emotions rise and fall, the way the mind reaches for control, the way the heart learns patience, slowly, reluctantly. There is no conclusion yet, no resolution, only awareness, a deepening sense that this silence is shaping you, even if you do not yet understand how. It is asking you to remain gentle, even while feeling unsettled, to remain kind, even while unsure. So you stay, you breathe, you observe. You allow the silence to exist without forcing it to change, and in doing so, you take the first quiet step towards something deeper, not outward strength, but inward steadiness. As time passes, another feeling quietly takes shape. It is not sudden. It does not arrive with noise. It settles slowly, like a cool shadow moving across the heart. The feeling of being misunderstood. You begin to sense it in the way they look at you, in the way your silence is interpreted. What feels thoughtful to you may appear distant to them. What feels gentle may be seen as weak, and though no words are spoken, something unspoken stands between you. This is a delicate kind of pain, not sharp, not dramatic, just quietly persistent. You realize that the meaning you carry inside does not always reach the outside world. Or intentions, so clear to you, become blurred once they leave your hands. Have you ever noticed how lonely that can feel? To know your heart yet feel unseen. To move carefully yet be judged as indifferent. To choose restraint yet be mistaken for someone who does not care. You replay moments in your mind, not to accuse, but to understand. You wonder if you should have spoken more clearly, if you should have explained yourself. If silence, once chosen with care, has now created distance instead of peace. There is a quiet injustice in being misunderstood, not because others are wrong, but because they cannot see what you never showed. They see only what is visible. They measure your actions without knowing the weight behind them. And so assumptions form. They fill the empty spaces where words were never placed. Your calm becomes coldness. Your patience becomes passivity. Your kindness becomes something taken for granted. You feel this deeply, even if you never say it aloud. It rests behind your ribs, a gentle ache. You begin to question yourself, not in anger, but in reflection. Is silence always wise? Or does it sometimes hide the truth too well? Yet even in this discomfort, you notice something important. You are not angry. not truly. There is no desire to correct them harshly, only a sadness that understanding feels so fragile, so easily lost between two quiet hearts. Being misunderstood teaches humility. It reminds you that you do not control how others see you. No matter how carefully you act, your image in their eyes will always be shaped by their own experiences, their own wounds, their own expectations. This realization is sobering. It strips away the illusion that goodness guarantees clarity, that kindness ensures appreciation. Sometimes the more quietly you live, the more easily your depth is overlooked. You may feel the urge to defend yourself, to explain your silence, to show the careful thought behind every pause. That urge is natural. It comes from a desire to be known, to be understood as you truly are. But another voice speaks softly within you, a quieter wisdom. It asks whether being understood by everyone is truly necessary. It asks whether your worth depends on their interpretation or on your own integrity. In these moments, you begin to see the quiet strength of self-respect. It does not demand recognition. It does not rush to correct every misunderstanding. It stands calmly, even when seen incorrectly. You realize that not every story needs to be clarified. Not every silence needs an explanation. Some truths are meant to be carried, not displayed. Some intentions live best when they remain untouched by judgment. Being misunderstood is not the end of kindness. It is a crossroads. One path leads toward reaction, justification, and restless defense. The other leads inward toward patience, discernment, and quiet endurance. And so, you pause again. Not because it is easy, but because it feels honest. You allow him to believe what they will. You allow the discomfort to exist without turning it into bitterness. In this stillness, something inside you begins to mature. You learn that being unseen does not erase who you are, that being misread does not lessen the truth of your heart. You remain gentle, not because they understand you, but because you understand yourself. After being misunderstood for a while, something begins to soften inside you. Not the pain, but the urgency. The need to be seen loosens its grip just slightly, and in that space a deeper kind of listening begins. You start to notice what usually goes unheard. The tone beneath words, the pauses between actions, the way silence itself carries meaning. It is as if the noise within you has quieted enough to hear something older and steadier. You realize that much of the discomfort came from listening outward, waiting for signs of approval or correction, waiting for them to understand. But now your attention turns inward. You listen to the rhythm of your own breath, to the calm that appears when you stop explaining yourself, even in your thoughts. This listening is not forced. It is patient. It does not demand answers. It allows questions to remain unanswered without feeling incomplete. You begin to see that understanding does not always come from being heard, but from hearing yourself clearly. There is a gentle clarity that arrives in these moments. You remember why you chose silence in the first place. Not to not to avoid, but to protect something tender within you, your peace, your values, your sense of self. You observe how often reactions are born from discomfort, how quickly words can rise when the heart feels threatened, and you notice how rare it is to simply stay still, to let emotions pass without acting on them. Have you ever watched a feeling come and go without touching it, without naming it, without letting it decide your next step? In this quiet observation, you discover that emotions are like weather. They move, they change, they do not define the sky itself. This realization brings relief. You no longer feel the same pressure to correct every misunderstanding or soften every silence. You see that some things resolve on their own when left undisturbed. Others lose their power when they are not fed with reaction. Listening beneath the noise also reveals something about them. You begin to sense that their judgments are not truly about you. They come from their own fears, their own unmet expectations. Understanding this does not excuse the pain, but it loosens its hold. You feel compassion rise, not loudly but steadily. A quiet acceptance that everyone sees the world through their own lens, and that no amount of explanation can change what someone is not ready to see. In this deeper listening, your silence becomes different. It is no longer heavy or uncertain. It feels intentional, grounded, like a still lake that reflects clearly because it is undisturbed. Why? You trust yourself more here. You trust your initial intention, the kindness you offered, the restraint you practiced. You see that these were not mistakes, but choices aligned with who you are. There is a subtle shift in your posture, even if no one notices. You stand a little more comfortably within yourself, less reactive, less eager to prove, more at ease with being quietly consistent. This is where wisdom begins to take root, not as knowledge but as presence, a calm awareness that stays with you, even when things remain unresolved. You learn that listening is not always about sound. Sometimes it is about patience, about allowing truth to surface in its own time, about recognizing that clarity often comes when you stop searching for it. As the night grows quieter, so does your mind. You sit with this understanding, not rushing to name it, just feeling its steadiness, knowing perhaps for the first time that your silence is not empty. It is full of listening. There comes a moment when you understand something without needing to say it aloud. A quiet knowing settles in, steady and calm. You see clearly now that silence is not something that happened to you. It is something you chose. This realization changes the weight of it. Silence no longer feels like absence or loss. It feels like space. A deliberate space where your dignity remains untouched, where your emotions are held gently, not scattered in reaction. You notice how often reaction promises relief but to live. Regret. How quickly words spoken in discomfort can escape, never to return. And how deeply they can disturb the calm you worked so carefully to build. So you pause again. Not because you are unsure, but because you are certain enough to wait. You feel the strength in not responding immediately, in letting moments pass without explanation, in trusting that not everything requires your voice. This choice is not easy. Silence asks you to sit with feeling rather than release it. It asks you to endure the pull of response without obeying it. That pull can be strong. It whispers that you must defend yourself, that you must clarify, that you must be seen. But you remain still. In that stillness, you sense your self-respect growing firmer. It no longer depends on being validated or understood. It rests quietly within you, unaffected by shifting opinions. You feel grounded, like something rooted deep below the surface. Have you ever noticed how true strength often goes unnoticed? It does not announce itself. It does not demand attention. It simply remains steady and unshaken even when tested. Choosing silence over reaction is not surrender. It is discernment. It is knowing which battles cost too much of your peace. It is understanding that not every misunderstanding deserves your energy. You begin to recognize how powerful restraint can be, not the kind that suppresses emotion, but the kind that respects it enough to wait. You allow feelings to move through you without letting them decide your actions. This restraint brings clarity. You see situations more clearly when you are not entangled in them. You notice patterns. You understand motives. You see where silence protects you and where reaction would only deepen the wound. They may continue to assume. They may continue to misunderstand. And for the first time, that does not disturb you as deeply. You realize that your inner balance is worth more than correcting every false impression. There is a quiet pride here, though it does not feel like pride. It feels like alignment, like living in harmony with your own values. You act or do not act based on what feels right, not on what feels provoked. Silence becomes a boundary, a gentle one but firm. It signals that your peace is not open for negotiation, that your emotions are not tools for others to use. You sense a new kind of confidence forming, one that does not rely on winning or being right, one that comes from knowing you can face discomfort without losing yourself to it. As you sit with this understanding, the urge to explain fades. Not because you no longer care, but because you care more deeply about staying whole. You choose not to scatter your energy where it will not be honored. And so, silence becomes your strength. Not loud, not visible, but real. It holds you steady as the world moves around you. It allows you to remain calm without becoming cold, present without becoming reactive. In this quiet choice, you protect something precious. Your inner balance, your self-respect, your peace, and you do so without a single word spoken. With time, you begin to notice changes that are almost invisible. They do not announce themselves. They do not arrive with certainty or pride. They appear quietly in the way you respond less and feel more at ease doing so. Restraint starts to shape you from the inside, not as denial, but as refinement. You feel emotions fully, yet you no longer rush to release them outward. You let them settle like dust falling gently to the ground, revealing clearer air. There is a patience growing in you now, a patience that was not there before. It shows itself when words rise and fall away without being spoken. When you feel the familiar pull to react, and instead, you remain present with the feeling until it softens on its own. This kind of growth is quiet. No one points to it. No one praises it. Often, no one even notices. And somehow, that makes it stronger. It belongs entirely to you. You begin to see how restraint creates space. Space to reflect, space to choose, space to act with intention rather than impulse. In that space, you feel more aligned with yourself than you ever did when reacting quickly. Have you ever felt the calm that comes after holding back, not out of fear, but out of wisdom? It is different from silence that feels heavy. This silence feels clean. It leaves no regret behind. You notice that situations which once stirred you deeply now pass through you more gently, not because you care less, but because you understand more. You understand that not every emotion needs expression to be valid. Not every thought needs to be shared to be true. Through restraint, you begin to trust your inner stability. You see that you can remain kind without being overexposed. You can remain compassionate without being consumed. You can forgive without reopening old wounds. This balance takes time. It is learned slowly through moments of discomfort and quiet decision. Each time you choose not to react, you strengthen something within, something steady, something enduring. They may still speak, they may still misunderstand, but you notice how little control that has over you now. Their words arrive, but they do not settle deeply. They touch the surface and pass on. You grow more selective with your energy. You give it where it is received gently. You withhold it where it would be misunderstood or misused. This is not withdrawal, it is care. Restraint teaches you the value of presence. You are no longer pulled into every moment. You observe more, you listen more, you see the shape of things before stepping into them. There is also a softness in this growth, a tenderness toward yourself. You no longer judge your feelings for arising, you simply acknowledge them and allow them to move through without causing harm. You learn that strength does not always push forward. Sometimes it stands still, sometimes it steps back, sometimes it remains quiet. Not because it is unsure, but because it is complete. In the stillness, you feel yourself becoming more whole, less fragmented by reaction, less defined by others' expectations, more rooted in your own understanding. This growth does not make you distant, it makes you centered. It allows you to meet the world with calm eyes and an open heart without losing your ground. As the night deepens, you sit with this quiet strength. You do not need to name it. You do not need to show it. You simply feel it, steady and real, growing quietly through every moment of restraint you chose. There is a moment when you realize that something important has changed, even though nothing around you looks different. The world moves as it always has. They remain as they are. And yet, inside you, a quiet strength has taken shape. It did not come from being noticed. It did not come from being understood or praised. It grew in the unseen hours, in the moments when you chose calm over reaction and restraint over explanation. You see now that much of what truly shapes a person happens without witnesses. The decisions made in silence, the emotions held gently instead of released, the dignity protected when no one was watching. This kind of growth asks for no recognition. It does not seek approval. It exists fully even when it goes unacknowledged. And there is something freeing in that. You no longer wait to be affirmed. You no longer measure your worth by response. Have you noticed how peaceful it feels when you stop expecting understanding from every direction? When you allow others to remain where they are without needing them to see what you see? You feel less pressure now, less urgency to explain yourself. Less desire to be interpreted correctly, not because you have withdrawn, but because you have arrived somewhere solid within yourself. There is a quiet confidence here, one that does not rise from certainty about the world, but from trust in your own steadiness. You know you can face misunderstanding without being undone by it. You also notice a gentler relationship with your own emotions. When something stirs inside you, you do not rush to judge it. You sit with it, you let it speak softly, then fade when it is ready. This patience with yourself extends outward. You become less reactive to them, not out of distance, but out of clarity. You see their actions more clearly now, without taking them into yourself. There is no need to win anything here, no need to correct the past, no need to prove growth. Growth has already happened, quietly, deeply, without permission. You begin to understand that inner power does not need display. It does not rely on outward change to feel real. It is felt in the ease of your breath, in the calm of your thoughts, in the steadiness of your presence. You move through moments with less tension. You listen more than you speak. You respond only when it feels true, not when it feels expected. And when you remain silent, it feels complete, not unfinished. They may never notice this change. And for the first time, that does not matter. You are no longer growing for recognition. You are growing for peace. There is humility in this stage. Not the kind that diminishes, but the kind that frees. You do not need to be seen as strong because you feel it. You do not need to be told you are wise because your choices reflect it. As the quiet continues, you sense a deep gratitude, not for what happened, but for what it revealed. It showed you your own capacity to remain grounded, to grow without applause, to hold your center without hardening your heart. This is where quiet power lives, in the unseen, in the unspoken, in the steady awareness that you are enough, just as you are, even when no one is watching. And you sit with that knowing, calmly, as the night holds you in its stillness. Now, everything feels quieter, not empty but settled, the kind of quiet that does not ask for anything. It simply exists, gentle and steady, like a deep breath taken without effort. You notice how little you need now. Fewer answers, fewer explanations, fewer reactions. What once felt unfinished now feels complete in its own way. The silence around you has changed. It no longer presses against you or asks to be filled. It rests beside you, calm and familiar, a companion rather than a challenge. You sit with yourself easily. There is no tension in the stillness, no urge to revisit old moments or imagine endings. What happened has already shaped you, and it no longer asks for your attention. Have you ever felt this kind of peace before? The kind that does not depend on things being resolved outwardly, but feels resolved inwardly. You understand now that strength does not always look like movement. Sometimes it looks like rest. Sometimes it looks like acceptance. Sometimes it looks like letting things be exactly as they are. You feel a quiet respect for yourself. Not pride, not satisfaction. Just a calm recognition that you stayed true to something important within you, that you did not abandon your values when it would have been easier to react. There is softness here. You are not hardened by what you learned. You are gentler but also clearer. You know where your boundaries are without needing to defend them. You know your worth without needing to declare it. They remain part of the story but no longer at the center. Their words, their silence, their misunderstandings have lost their weight. They exist, but they do not disturb your balance. You see now that peace does not arrive when everything makes sense. It arrives when you stop demanding that it must, when you allow life to be imperfect and yourself to remain steady within it. Your inner world feels spacious. Thoughts come and go without clinging. Emotions rise and fall without urgency. You are present but not pulled. This calm is not something you try to hold on to. It holds you. It is the result of all the moments you chose patience, all the times you listened instead of reacted, all the silences you respected. There is nothing left to prove, nothing left to protect, nothing left to correct. Only a quiet readiness to move forward gently, carrying what matters, leaving the rest behind. As the night deepens, you remain still, not waiting, not hoping, simply being, breathing slowly, feeling grounded. You understand now that true closure is quiet. It does not announce itself. It arrives softly and stays. And in this calm place within, you are whole.